Okay, it seems we are live. Um, yeah, welcome, Christian.
Thank you, Garrett. Happy to be
It's,
here.
yeah, it's been a little while since I've had the Undoing stream. Hopefully, as I always say, we'll be doing more of these more often, but we'll see what actually happens. But yeah, so I will. I'm Garrett. I'm the Undoing guy. Been teaching people how to do radical undoing, bringing people out of the hell of the mind back into the reality of the body so that you can start to handle what's actually going on in your life without um, getting perpetually lost in your imagination about what's going on. So maybe it doesn't sound like much, but tonight we're going to go through why that's so important and some of how that actually plays out in your life when you do this work and this training. So Christian, I'll just give you a brief introduction and you can say more. Um, we met first, you were a client of mine online, and during a time we were doing some of the daily training stuff. And we'll get into what that is and some of the other stuff you experienced. And then we met in person in England for the first, I think, at least twice, two or three times in England for the yearly workshops, and then also in Norway. And then we've since kept in touch and became, I'd say, friends. And yeah. So, anything else you want to add to that, Christian?
Well, could add lots, but yes, you're my friend, Garrett, and it's been a good ride. Can say from the onset, did you just want me to start talking about the experience with the undoing? Because yeah, there's
uh,
there's a lot to say.
yeah, why not? And then as we, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you couch it in terms of like how and why where'd you find Command Z or myself? You know, what were you going through at that time? And then we'll cover, just so everyone knows, we'll cover the six ways that undoing actually helps you overcome delusion, helps you, let's say, battle with. I don't know if we ever overcome these things while we're alive, but helps you battle with delusion and anxiety and stress and things. But we'll get to that a little bit later. For now, yeah, just say where you found out about undoing, how we ended up
Yeah,
meeting up in the first place.
yeah. Well, just to skip ahead there one bit, because you just said that it never quite passes, but how to battle. And to make a point there where the greatest change has happened for me since before I started doing the undoing and now with several years of it below my belt, it's that there are still challenges and there is pain and there is stuff like that, but my life is always worthwhile. Uh, I never feel that life is meaningless, you know?
Mm.
I always feel that it's worthwhile. That's the change.
So let's rewind to how you felt, to contrast that. What was going
Yeah.
on then? How did you find the undoing? All this.
Well, I had actually heard of it from a time before I started doing it or checking into it myself. I've always been involved in some form of self help or spirituality or religion, or always, at least since I was like 14 or something. So I had had a Christian period and lots of done all sorts of other stuff like Wicca and shamanism, and gone to Egypt with lots of healers, stuff like that. And especially those journeys to Egypt, because they were peak experiences, right? We traveled up and
Hmm.
down the entire country, did all sorts of rituals and healing experiences, etc. And I had a great time. It was in the beginning of my 20s. But when I got back home, and I had several issues in my life which were like waiting for me when I got back, I felt like, was that all bullshit, man? You know,
Mm.
having these wonderful experiences, heaven like, and then going home and nothing had really changed about me or the experiences around. And that really sent me into a depressive state, I would say, because I
Mm.
thought if stuff like that couldn't help me feel better, then what can, you know? And I kind of lost the magic in my life, it felt like.
Mm. So you
So
felt these kind of elated, let's call it elated emotional experiences, maybe
yes,
mixed up with the idea of spirituality or something like this.
yeah,
And then you got home and you're still facing these same issues. So maybe then
same things.
you felt inadequate or like, oh wow, well what, I thought it was this way, now it's back to this, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Uh, so I felt that almost felt abandoned by God in a way, you know, and gave up on life in a way. Actually, though, in retrospect, I wouldn't say that I gave up. I just began to live, and I lived out lots of sides, lots of darker sides as well. But a few years into that, I had my first son, and things started to feel good because that's also a peak experience, you know. And a few years after that, again, me and his mother had broken up, and I met another woman and had another son. And then all my former lack of responsibility, fiscal, etc., started to mount up, and there was really a lot of pressure from. I mean, you've known me quite a few years, Garrett, so I told you a bit about it, and you've seen some of it yourself. There was pressure on all sides, basically, and I felt
Mm-hmm.
totally, it felt completely unmanageable to me. Everything. And I was at a point in life where I felt that there was no joy. Uh, Everyone around me was unhappy. I had lots of problems, some of them real, with bad people, etc. And I wasn't happy in my job. I felt that I couldn't use. I had a couple of years where I went to film school and stuff like that, but
Mm-hmm.
couldn't work with it because I suddenly had to make more money quicker. So I went
Mm-hmm.
into a job that I didn't like, and my entire situation was felt like a battle, and I did not feel like I had the resources to do anything about it. And that's when I started to check out the undoing, because I had heard of it from another friend of mine who was who I worked a bit with, sort of self-help and spirituality things with. He had discovered Dr. Hyatt's teachings. But this friend, he always took it to the extremes, you know, like the breaking up with a friend stuff and doing all the other devices things.
Mm-hmm.
And from my perspective, which back then held quite a bit of a facade, etc., you know, the undoing can seem unsexy, right?
The
You,
actual getting down to the physical work, the movements and the breathing. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
know about all that, but I felt that he was taking it to the extreme in a way.
Mm.
But I felt I had hit rock bottom somehow, and I bought the Undoing book, and I opened it and I began to read, and I just felt so relieved just feeling that tone. You know,
Mm.
I felt like Dr. Hyatt's warm embrace just welcomed me, and I felt, well, it's okay then, in a way.
Yeah.
It's okay,
Yeah.
you know, the letting go. Um, I began to do some of the stuff in there, but as we've discussed a couple of times, the Radical Undoing book in and of itself, it jumps around between different things that Dr. Hyatt has thought about, some other Kabbalah stuff and some spiritual stuff and
Yeah.
lots of different things. So it's kind of hard to find the exact exercises,
Mm-hmm.
but I did some of them and they felt good. But I was still doing them in a sort of non-organic way, you know, just like doing them as a regime, sort of.
Yeah.
And I, Googling around, I found Command Z. And back then, I think you were doing a blog and had a newsletter, and you were doing it with this other guy. Is it Ryan?
Riley and Ryan. Yeah.
Riley. Yeah, Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading what you wrote. I think this was way back in 2011, even.
Oh wow. Huh.
And I was following your blog on and off. I remember writing to you at some point because you asked about something in an email, and you said that you would give a gift if one replied, and the gift was you sent out a video why crows are smarter than you.
Oh wow. I don't even remember that. That's great. What a gift.
Excellent gift. And this is like 13 years ago or something.
This was a video I made, or a video like a YouTube video or
A
something?
YouTube video of,
Okay.
I think it was crows, showing
Yeah.
how they can manipulate artifacts and stuff like that, you know?
What a snide thing to send out, right?
Yeah, here's your gift. Crows are smarter than you.
Oh man.
And I don't remember what year it was. It might have been like 2013, 14, something like that.
Mhm.
Andrew Bishop reached out,
Yeah.
and because he was working with you back then,
Hmm.
and he asked if I wanted to chat, and we did. I told him about my life and how I was struggling on many fronts, actually, and told him how I had been doing the exercises. And again, I met this relief because he said, you know, when all the fictional stories about how you have failed, etc., he pointed out that as a biological being, I mean, you're breathing. So biological wise, you've succeeded.
Hmm.
It's not much more than that.
What a good
And then we,
point. Yeah, he's good with those kind of situations. Yeah.
yeah, he is. And then we, I think we met up a few times, did some exercises together. And then you had like an online course where you unlocked several different videos and exercises over time. So I jumped on that, and then you took contact, and we did a session.
Hmm.
And you said you had the dailies going.
Uh-huh. So they had already begun when you jumped in.
Yeah, no, I think I was part of them from the start. I
Yeah.
can't remember quite now because it's been a while. But
Yeah.
I think we did a session first. I think I did a session with Andrew and then one with you. And then the monthly thing with unlocking different videos,
Hmm.
and then began the dailies. And for those that don't know, I mean, that was a real show. Uh, Meeting up every day, different lengths of time, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes maybe an hour and a half. And we had every day we had undoing exercises, the so-called warm-ups, which I think, I mean, mostly I just do them now.
I say that's the meat of the work. You know, the session is good and important, but doing the face stretches, the shoulders, the flops, whatever, every single day you start to get. Well, you'll get into it, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's you start to see some pretty deep results. And I told people that they can look on the playlist on the channel here. I have one playlist, the SELF one, self playlist, which was the face stretches, shoulders, flops, and laughing breath. And
yeah,
I had so many people criticize me on Facebook and different expected on Facebook at this point, but oh, you're selling some kind of spiritual thing. It should be free. And I'm like, dude, you're so confused. Number one, I'm not selling anything so-called spiritual, and you don't even know what that word means. But second, have you availed yourself of the volumes of free stuff that is
yeah,
available? I leave it out there, you know. Just that playlist alone, though, without me getting too into my imaginary enemies,
yeah,
uh, just that playlist alone, if someone actually took it seriously, did it every single day, even if they don't want to do it, that's important. When you
yeah,
don't want to do it, you do it anyway.
yeah.
Just keep going and going and going. It's gonna just it will just blow your mind over time. But you might have to work at it for like 3 or 4 months
Yeah.
and not be aware that anything is changing. That's part of the so-called problem, let's say, with this work. You know.
Yeah, and what you say now brings to mind a cool thing that we did during the dailies that I sometimes still do, and that's what you called the fake meditation. Because and a lot of people, when you say you should try to meditate, they say, "Well, I tried, but I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me. I couldn't
Yeah.
get into that state, etc." Because they feel, unlike, say, for instance, jogging. If you jog, you have jogged. That's it. There's nothing
Yeah.
more to it, really.
Yeah.
And that's what you did with the meditation, with the fake meditation. Because The thing was that you were to sit down, focus on a point in your forehead, close your eyes, and breathe for a set amount of time. And that's it. There is nothing special that you're supposed to achieve, right? You're just supposed to do that thing. And as with the other exercises, though, the secret is, of course, that when you just do that thing, things start to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's that's what's crazy. Yeah, with the face stretches, the shoulders.
Yeah.
I remember times doing the laughing breath. I was being so pissed off in some driving in some road trip with a girlfriend, and angry, and like driving 6 hours trying to find some campsite, couldn't find it, and like I started doing the laughing breath, and it sounded like ha 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 ha, you know, and then like this isn't working, you know, but I kept doing it, and eventually then it has its effects, you know. Then the anger gets linked up with something else, and you start to be able to flow through those intense experiences without a lot of reactivity.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. Also, not a lot of reactivity, so you don't have to fuck up your life just because you feel something, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to think you're evil just because you have quote unquote evil thoughts.
Right.
So, yeah, but just to say a bit more about the dailies, are they still available, by the way, to people watching this?
Yeah, it's there. It's all there. I haven't really, I haven't put it like, haven't rewritten I probably need to rewrite the sales page on there to say that this is a thing that's complete.
Yeah.
And then I think I posted at least over the first year's worth on there. Maybe I can't remember how many. At least 1 year, maybe almost 2 are actually posted in the membership site.
Yeah.
I think if a person did the 1 year, that's going to be enough.
That's going to be enough, yeah. And to contrast that with my Egypt journeys, to explain to people the difference there, and not to decry those journeys. They now that I look upon them, I think, wow, they were fantastic experiences. But the thing that let me down when I came back home was that suddenly I was back in a non-spiritual world, because spiritual had suddenly become something associated with something other, you know. But this year of dailies.
Oops. Sorry about that. Press the wrong button.
I'm back there.
There we are.
Yeah. Well, this year of dailies, as I was about to say, they consisted of undoing exercises every day and also a so-called bonus mission every day. We had a theme every week, which was like 1 week could be business, another could be supernatural stuff, one could be trees and flora, etc. So we had missions every day that were non-undoing, but yet related, because they were related to activity and fun and learning and stuff like that. And doing all this happened in my day-to-day life. So in the life where I had the perceived troubles and the situations I couldn't get out of, we were doing the exercises in that life.
In the fabric of your day-to-day life, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to make time for that, and doing that, instead of going like to a mountain in Tibet or a monastery somewhere where I had been kind of like closed off from what I thought were my problems, only to then have them reappear again, I was now working with myself in the actual situation. And that's something that both you and Andrew, I remember, told me in the beginning also, that the goal is not to try to muscle changes into your life, but it's just to ease into your body more. And then things will start to change of themselves.
Yeah.
And they did. There was a lot of pain in that, but it was pain that I could feel and that passed once it was over. Like bad weather. Some people can complain about it and get hung up on it, but it passes, right? So yeah, those dailies, I mean, they led to, first of all, me having a steady practice of undoing. We're also doing sessions once a week. Since then, there were, I think it was until 2019 before I had only missed like a day or two of face stretches. After that, I was a bit on and off for a while, but I think I've been doing face stretches every day for the last couple of years at least. It feels like brushing my teeth. It's part of the daily ritual. And also for people, I mean, imagine many people watching this are interested in, morning routines, stuff like that. And that becomes a lot easier because you realize what kind of a magician you are in your daily life, basically.
Oh, say more about that.
Well, I'm going to go back to another experiment we did, which was to just hold our hands up and open and close them at various speeds, just being very aware of what we were doing. And what that did was give me a feeling of my intentionality, how I can choose to do certain things. I mean, most of the world is not something I can choose, but certain things related to me, and I can separate them from the things I can't choose, I have a choice in. And that opens the way to be able to move beyond what you thought were limitations. When people look at something like the Sixtine Chapel or something, they think that Michelangelo was like a wizard, a very different person. But like you once said, he was a guy sitting in a room, a person like others. He just did those things. And it's an ongoing work, of course. I have lots of things yet to do, but yeah, I'm a lot more aware of my power, basically. However humble it is, but I'm able to do stuff, and I'm able to criticize myself a lot less, and to feel things.
And how is that different from what was going on before then?
Well, because I was a lot more restricted, right? For instance, a very now this might sound banal, but to me it wasn't. When I was younger, let's say I got drunk, then my inner demons would start to come out. If I would get drunk now, that wouldn't happen, because those so-called demons, they're not like demons anymore. They're just feelings that I can sometimes, of course, I can get mad, things like that, but it's not. I don't have to hide or restrict it in any way.
They're not forcing you into action, let's say.
They're not forcing me into action. They might, of course. I mean, that's also a part of the undoing journey, just the humbleness, just I'm just me, and just being here. It's made me, instead of like trying to find truth everywhere, it's maybe paradoxically, but made me a lot more philosophical without getting hung up in the philosophy, but like thinking about stuff like, one way I like to view my life is like a cool movie. A cool movie has drama, or else you wouldn't watch it. It would be boring, basically. In order to have a story arc, etc., it would need some drama, and drama is not always pleasant. So when I have unpleasantness, I can just view it as part of a cool story and just accept it, basically.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I was thinking about that in terms of orthodoxy or Orthodox Christianity just today, that the suffering, and I used to kind of like go against that we should have no suffering. I think I used to have that point of view, but that was contradictory to what I was experiencing in my life, even while I was saying it. And since finding orthodoxy, I've seen that suffering is contextualized
Yeah.
in a much different way. That and that you can turn to face it and then and feel whatever's going on, and it's not that big of a deal, and it ultimately is, in a certain sense, purifying you from this. Um, we could say demonic or unconscious
Yeah.
reactivity, being controlled by forces that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
When you can feel whatever's going on, it also kind of like isn't the same as suffering anymore. Once you choose to embrace the battle or
Yeah.
embrace the what's going on as it is, you can handle it. You can actually handle it.
Yeah. It makes me think of like the old horror movies where the special effects were a bit crappy. So it was
Hmm.
really scary until you saw the monster. Then it's like,
Right.
this isn't scary anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Interesting. Yeah. 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 Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, those dailies. That was something else. I don't even know. I thought recently of doing something as a form of daily practice, but not like that. It was magical how all that came together. I didn't do any special marketing around it or anything. Of course, Andrew helped out bringing people in, maybe better than I could have done, but and I'm not sure how that would look now. But it's fascinating that it's still there. I have all the videos still.
Yeah. I mean,
It has. Whoa.
it's a celebration.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. There's something with this camera and the software that it uses
I
that
think is this a Google
it has
thing?
a it has no. This would be through my camera software. I did
Because
some gesture, but I don't know what it was.
if you try doing this, maybe there comes a bubble around your hand. Yeah,
Ah,
there it is. Yeah. I've seen a lot at work lately. We have a lot of
ah,
video meetings, and yeah, it shows up. I don't know if it's Google or the camera or whatever it is, but
yeah, I know. Well, in Zoom, they made a thing. Well, it's in my camera hub. Funny, but I can't remember where the setting is. It's like oh, there's the settings. No, it doesn't. It doesn't actually say. Anyway, I won't have to fix it right now. But okay, whatever. Uh, yeah, no. Huh. None of the settings are immediately available, but I found them somewhere. It had like these backgrounds, and anyway,
yeah.
let's not get too distracted. But that was kind of weird, huh?
Another exercise that you gave me uh, in the beginning of my undoing journey that I often bring up to people is that you told me to do the dishes whenever I saw them.
Yeah.
Like, just do the dishes. And even if
At
you're at
other people's
somebody,
houses too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, just do them. If you see a dish, dirty dish, do it. And there are a lot of people who are really not productive in their day-to-day life. And this causes them a lot of problems. I mean, our world is we live in a world where, like Jesus say, give to Caesar what is his. I don't know if that's the word in English, but that's the Norwegian translation.
Mm-hmm.
I interpret it as meaning like, some things you just can't change, like taxes and stuff like that, and like work. People who shy away from having to do things, and those are a lot of people. That doing the dishes exercise also proves your power in a way to do
Mm-hmm.
things, and I love that one, and that's really been a help as well. Sounds
Wow.
banal again, but
And how did that play out? Like when you're at other people's houses and stuff, you just walk up and start
yeah,
handling
I,
it.
th- I think I only did it a couple of times at other people's houses. Just went over and people react right away. No, no, you don't have to do that and stuff. Like, yeah, I do.
It's a really powerful thing. Yeah. It
Yeah,
can only improve your relations with other people's
yeah,
whose house you hang out at, but that's not the point of doing it. Uh,
yeah. And it also kind of it undoes. I mean, the goal is to undo yourself, not to undo others, but it does undo others a bit because they have to start asking, like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing the dishes at my house, etc."
yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. I forgot about that too. I'll make a YouTube short out of that.
Yeah.
One of these like really, really lackluster techniques. I'll call it magical technique to change your life. And then,
Yeah, do the dishes. But I mean, a
yeah.
lot of people just don't do their dishes.
Hmm.
So it becomes a symbol of like the undone practical stuff that they should just get done to have a better
Right.
life.
Yeah, we created something in the iTag group, which you weren't so much part of, called Holy Discipline. And it's a
Yeah.
similar thing. And you just set a timer for however much time you have for that day. You can also do it spontaneously, but the initial practice is called Holy Discipline, Holy Discipline. And so you set the timer, let's say for 30 minutes, and then you just look around your house or your room or however you live. You look around your house, and then you'll notice, for example, I have this coffee cup from today. So I
Yeah.
might notice that first thing that caught my attention. And then I'll bring that downstairs and wash it. Okay, then I finish that. And then I notice, oh, there's some cat hair underneath the front of the fridge. And I might notice also that I've noticed it a bunch of times in the past. It's been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you just go for it, clean that up. And as you're down there, you might notice um, a smell. And then you open the fridge. Oh man, I got to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah.
Then you get rid of that. And then as you're getting rid of it, you notice something in the alley, like you need to put a battery in your bicycle light. Ah, okay. So you get the battery, put it in the bike light. You're not trying to complete any task. You're not trying to clean your house. You're not trying to organize your house. You're just going with whatever you notice. And we had the added bonus or benefit, let's say, when you first start the practice, you put on the Radiohead song on repeat. That everything in its right place, and you put that song on loop,
Yeah.
or the Bright Eyes song with the Bright Eyes song, everything must belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And the idea is so strange that there's not. Maybe there is an objective. Okay, I would posit that the objective correctness is beauty, which is created by God, which is okay. So that's why we are able to discern it. But even without that worldview, even outside of that worldview, a person would have to admit they did notice that piece of trash or that little piece of paper that sat by the trash can that never got picked up, or the
Yeah.
cat hair under the dresser, or the books that need to be rearranged. They would notice it for some reason, and most often it just goes out of awareness until we make this big event of, okay, I'm going to clean the house today, or
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Holy Discipline got you out of that weird imaginary realm of, oh, I need to do this and organize this and clean that, and into this just following what's already being brought to your attention organically.
Yeah.
Uh,
That might have
so I just
some
wanted to
other.
introduce that. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it actually, I keep a pretty clean house, but there are always extra stuff that I should be done. And I actually have a bookshelf, and I've made this kind of mental mission. And I realized that I kind of trapped myself in it because I have to sort these books out and what am I going to do with them, and I don't want to throw them, So I never do it.
Yeah.
Maybe Holy
Yeah.
Discipline could help me there.
Yeah, exactly. I had a shelf here at the house. It's downstairs. One of these IKEA, like 9 boxes, 9 or 3x3 boxes, something like this, 4x6. I don't remember. And I had just put a bunch of stuff that goes there or doesn't fit anywhere else onto that shelf when I first moved into this house. And then for a year, I think it was almost a whole year, I never actually organized it. And I would walk past it. And in my head, it was like, that's going to take like 2 hours, so I'll do it when I have time. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to organize one of the boxes. Like, this is bothering me every time I walk past, I'm noticing it. So I stopped and I started to organize one box, and it was like 30 minutes and the whole thing was done. Maybe less than 30 minutes, it was ridiculous. It was so easy. And then every time I walked by it, at least either I didn't notice it or it felt okay.
Yeah.
So
That could apply to other areas in life as well. I mean, I'm thinking now, as I said, I know I have to make some changes, or I don't have to, but I'm feeling that sort of itch that I need to do something else. And a lot of that stuff kind of builds up these mental plans that one day I'm going to do this and that.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's the type of thing. Giving yourself a half hour as well, you have a perceptible stop to it. So you
Mhm.
know that it's not going to be forever or anything.
And you're doing a practice. You're not cleaning, you're not organizing, you know, you're
Yeah.
doing holy discipline, which is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I just arrived at one day. Started doing it, and then realized it kind of fit with some of what I was doing with one of the groups.
Yeah.
Introduced it, and then we all ran with it. And a lot of the undoing stuff came up that I could say almost everything. A lot of what came up in a lot of trainings and things that I've created came up in that way. They just came up in maybe virtue of someone else's need, or some client had a question and I didn't have an answer, and then some practice or some discipline or some training came to mind, and then I would create it around that based on whatever I had that I could create it with at the time.
Yeah. And a lot of it is about shifting perception, like doing something but calling it something else, for instance.
Say that
Or
again.
like,
Sorry, or say that, or elaborate on that.
well, like the fake meditation, for instance. Because the word meditation has so much attachment to it, right? Through popular culture and different religions, etc. So people get this like enormous feeling when they're supposed to do it. This applies to a lot of stuff, like
Yeah, yeah.
people who are anti-religious and they couldn't join you in prayer, for instance. You know, if they really didn't believe or anything, there would be no danger in it, right?
Right, exactly.
So no problem, really.
Yeah, yeah. I love the angry atheists. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There are lots of things like that. Like I remember my grandfather, a great man, but he was there was something peculiar because he was like an a modern atheist, not like the modern angry atheists. He wasn't like that, but he was just like a physically oriented guy, you know.
Mhm.
But he really had a thing against Satanists, you know,
Hmm.
and that's kind of because that shouldn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's a
If
contradiction for sure.
Yeah, it's a contradiction. Yeah.
Well, especially
So
because if he's coming from a materialist or naturalist worldview,
yeah,
everything in that worldview is just a effect of a previous cause.
yeah,
It has to be, because where would free will enter that picture? It would just be a chain of events. But so his anger at the Satanists would be the same as the Satanists doing whatever they do. It's
yeah,
all just some cause of some previous effect, or some effect of some previous cause. Yeah.
yeah. Exactly. And that brings me on to some other things as well. You know, when people think about karma, as when people ask if things are predetermined or not,
Hmm.
also people's need to have to prove if something is true or not.
Hmm.
You know, when you get into the undoing and you are able to experience just through the body and what you can actually touch, feel, etc., what's in the moment, then everything that supposedly has happened that you know of, your thoughts, etc., they don't exist anymore, right?
Hmm.
So for the physical reality as it exists and as I perceive it now, in order for that to be possible, everything that has happened has had to happen. It
Up
was
to now, yeah.
destiny. Yeah. I mean, I had to have gotten the job I did so I could bring home this computer because I'm sitting with you now on it. So the physical world wouldn't be possible if that didn't happen.
Right. And what's interesting is because it does kind of prove metaphysics, that
Yeah.
that something had to happen before we got here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic for another day, which we could actually do some live streams on those topics.
Yeah. They're fun topics to explore.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like one of my favorites is when people say there is no truth. You just have to ask them, is that true? I mean, you realize you're making a truth claim. There's no way around it. So, or if we make ought claims, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
The Buddhist monk, what's his name? Nagarjuna. You remember his saying that everything is what is it? Everything is empty and meaningless, including the fact that everything is empty and meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
That's also an interesting take on that, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were going to talk about how to battle delusion and stress.
Well, yeah. So we were going to say how undoing helps you battle delusion, stress, anxiety. Let's say the difficulties, the struggles of daily life. How does undoing outfit you for that battle? So we came up with 6 things, and we might go beyond these. That's also fine. I wanted to put Emmanuel's comment. He jumped on for a moment there. He said, "We'll listen later. Thanks for sharing." He said, "Just heard the last when we were talking about the organizing the shelf and stuff. I downloaded lots of PDF books. Haven't started reading one. LOL." Yeah. Emmanuel, if you catch this later or if you're still here, at some point I had a massive collection because I was formerly involved with the occult and then the mysticism and Freemasonry and everything you can imagine or can't imagine. And I had an insane physical book collection, which I jettisoned at some point, at a few points. And then also this ebook collection. There might be some vestiges of that left on some hard drive somewhere, but I remember at one moment starting to organize them yet again. And I was like, what am I even doing? This is so ridiculous. And I just dragged the whole thing to the garbage bin and pressed delete and got rid of it all. And it felt so good. It was like every one of those downloads was some tiny little burden on me that one day I'm going to do this. It was like I had like engineering books and mathematics and all kinds of madness. And it's like, if I want one of those, I should actually buy it.
Yeah.
I should actually buy the thing, and then I'll more than likely get through it.
Yeah. I mean, I love books, but I realize that I can only read so many of them. So I'm really picky about a book when I buy it now, because I ask myself, am I going to read this? Am I going to do it? So I don't want books just clogging up the shelf.
Yeah.
I want them if I'm going to use them.
Yeah. And really, really, if you can go deep with it.
Yeah.
So the 6 things, I won't read them all at once, but the first thing that we mentioned when you and I wrote these down was the first of the six ways that undoing helps you struggle, helps you, that doesn't sound right. I'm using struggle in like an orthodox sense. Let me look. 6 ways undoing combats delusion. That's what we said. Yeah. Combats delusion, anxiety, stress, this kind of stuff. So first one we said was when you're actually embodied. And what I mean by embodied is that you're physically present and have an awareness of what's actually going on inside and around you, as opposed to being completely disembodied, meaning lost in your imagination, interpretations, and emotions. Or I'd say emotional reactions. The emotions are happening here and now, but the reactions are happening somewhere else usually. So we said that embodiment means you know what's actually going on.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, it goes, when we just discussed what's empirically available to you, being in your body, sensing your entire body, realizing, feeling, knowing that you're not just the thoughts in your mind, but you are your hands, just the same. That is what creates presence. So, and when you're present, you're in the actual and real world. And unless there's a form of stress directly in front of you, in which case you can handle it, then the body can relax because it knows it's not real. You can feel the story as not a reality, but as just that, the story, you know, something emanating from your brain in the same way that like a rumbling in your stomach just doesn't cause your entire world to collapse. It's just something that comes from there. There's a rumbling in the brain. The brain thinks that, oh my God, I'm a failure. Okay. You're able to observe it.
I remember one time, yeah, I don't know what the exact issue was, but I was giving you, I think, a private session, or we were talking when you were a client, and it was like about something about your life. Doesn't matter what the imagined catastrophe was, but it was, and I remember that you were struggling with it. You felt like you needed to find some solution, and I gave you the "What's going to happen to me" exercise.
Yeah.
And I always felt weird. Not weird, but I was like, oh man, if I give this to somebody, they think that they have to solve this thing, and now I'm going to have them do this weird exercise wandering around the room.
Yeah.
But do you remember what happened for you? We won't give the whole exercise here, but do you remember what happened for you or how you received that?
The first time I remember doing the exercise, you know, and the feeling of it, I don't remember exactly what problem we were going to solve, but yeah, you know, Dr. Hyatt talks about the how you like build up tension and then it crashes and then you relax and then this process continues, and that often coincides with external events in your life that you create, of course, by fucking things up, etc. So, and that's the exercise for me. You do that thing like in a lab, so you're able to experience the crisis without it actually happening in your life. You create the crisis and thereby create the relaxation afterwards.
Yeah.
I remember another lesson you gave me, though, also, which led me to a realization. And that was I was complaining about some problem and going on about it at lengths. And then you stopped me and you said, well, you could become an alcoholic. And I thought, like, what the fuck is he saying? Is he serious? And I said, no, I kind of tried that a bit. It doesn't work. And then you said, no, I got it. You can grab a Bible and you can travel the land and preach. And I said, well, that's your dream, Garrett. And then you said, yeah, then what the fuck are you asking me for? And I remember thinking, yeah, of course, you know, I'm the one who knows this.
It was actually my dream to become an alcoholic, which I think moving to the Balkans, I've succeeded.
You have. Oh, congratulations.
No. Oh, that's great, man. That's beautiful. So yeah, that's the first way. Just once you come home to the body. Well, DB puts in the chat here. I love it how it always comes back down to the simple experience of being in the body. This method is so deceptively easy and elegant. Thank you as well, DB. And then he or she also mentioned this method trains the body into feeling secure no matter what the feelings or emotions are. That's an interesting point. Yeah, because the body knows if there's actually a threat or not, but then we're fooling it by running around listening to the demons in the imagination, which then cause tension in the body. This is, for example, how a panic attack, so if we extrapolate to an extreme situation, a person having a panic attack, they get tense in the shoulders, in the ass, in the belly, and the diaphragm's already chronically tense. It's already chronically tense. If it wasn't, there's no possibility of a panic attack. It cannot happen. Yeah. So then it gets tense, and then they're breathing in the chest and with the shoulders and the neck muscles, which should never be being used for normal, natural breathing. So they're like, then the brain reads that as, oh man, something's really wrong.
Yeah.
Because of course the brain's reading not only the senses, but reading the state of the body. And it says, oh man, we're not getting much breath. So now the blood vessels are constricted because you're not breathing properly.
Yeah.
And then the emergency breathing muscles, the shoulders, which are already chronically tense, some people, now they're super tense. And then the brain is going, oh man, there's an emergency. We're not getting enough oxygen. The body's in the same position it's in when there's a real emergency. We need to deal with this. So then they usually go to the doctor. I've had to do this before I knew about undoing. I brought people to the hospital. Or one specific woman I remember was in LA, and she just insisted that we bring her to the hospital. Okay, we'll bring her to the hospital. And all they did was give her some tranquilizers, which then forced the body to relax. The breathing, the breathing starts to normalize because now the chronic tension goes away for a little while, and she felt better. Now the pharmaceutical and or the psychiatric industry, which are almost one and the same, have medicalized things that are not medical issues, and panic attacks are one of them. I remember somebody was having some issue with that a couple of years ago, and I was close enough to this woman that it was okay for me to do a bodily intervention, but I just grabbed her, put my hand on her back, and then just jammed my fingers up into her diaphragm on the belly, just held them there tight. And then suddenly, and she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, just fucking breathe right from here. Push here right now. And then she started pushing and breathing, and everything just changed, completely relaxed. This was like 20 seconds it took for this panic attack to go away. So there's other exercises in the undoing, the panic breath and the gag reflex.
Could also do the box breathing that the Navy SEALs and other military types do.
Is that where you do 4 by 4 by 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 inhale, 4 hold, 4 exhale, 4 hold, yeah.
Yeah. Do that a couple of 3 times.
Yeah, you're focused on something else besides this imagined catastrophe as well.
Yeah. You
could also hit your thumb with a hammer.
Yeah.
No, I don't recommend that, but you know what I mean? That's brings you got to come back to what's actually going on. That's the whole point. Thankfully, these exercises are metaphoric ways of hitting yourself with the hammer, so it doesn't, you're not going to cause yourself physical injuries. So,
and it prevents God from having to hit you with the hammer, which has been my experience earlier in life.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I was listening to an Orthodox talk today. He mentioned that God will send greater and greater and greater slaps to the face. If you're not listening to the slaps that life is trying to give you.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems kind of like a joke from God as well. Like you're playing a card game and he suddenly gives you a card that you hadn't thought of.
Yeah, it could be. It's I don't know how to think about God's sense of humor at this point, but. Yeah, no comment. So number 2 on our list of how undoing helps you struggle against delusion is makes you less reactive to other people and other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned before we started, that most of the time other people's opinions are about you are inventions of your own imagination to begin with.
Yeah, fictional stories. Because you don't know, you haven't asked them. And even if you ask them, maybe they haven't thought of it and you're forcing them to come up with something. I think so that's not necessarily real either. And people generally have lots of different opinions about others that are just blips of thoughts. So, and it doesn't matter. And it brings me into another thing that you and Lance talked about when you had a podcast going, that no one really knows anything. And that's been a big help for me as well, especially in my professional life. A lot of people are afraid to make mistakes, and they consider others to be like these grand authority figures. Mm-hmm. And instead of being humble and being able to learn something from them, they actually fear them and fear talking what they themselves know because you feel incompetent, etc. And that's also something that's a delusion that undoing is going to help you with.
Is say that in another way, or give an example? You mean about the
Well, I experience it in my job now. I work in a large media company, and I work on the technical side in the like where they do the digital ads, etc. So not to get into that too much, a lot of technical stuff, but lots of people have like titles and are bosses of this and that, and many of those who are not are kind of afraid in a way to fuck up or say something wrong.
Hmm.
But in my experience, when I just speak what I think is right, nothing bad happens, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, huh? So you phrased it as, well, how did Lance and I describe it? You said that no one
You
knows
had,
anything or
yeah,
something
you had
like that.
an episode of the Art of NGF podcasts. I think it was called The Six Elements of Undoing or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And one of them was no one knows shit.
Hmm.
Basically meaning that, that well, as you do the undoing and begin to unravel things and so-called truths about yourself, then you realize that others are also carrying around lots of this stuff, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're
And
all in kind of the same situation. We might
yeah,
have some skills or something or some talents in
yeah,
one realm, but it doesn't mean that we're
no,
gods. Yeah.
yeah, and even in that realm, I mean, generally, the less humble people are, the more often I feel, at least, that they have some kind of facade or something to some insecurity to defend.
Yeah, I did a couple emails and posts recently. One was it was about the two demons that, of course, there are far more than just two, but these two major demons that'll come at you, and one is hopelessness and or despair.
Yeah,
And if they can't get you, then the one that shows up next is pride.
yeah,
Can be so deceptive, and everyone is subject to that.
yeah, yeah. I am myself a lot of the time. I mean, constantly coming to realizations that oh, maybe I was wrong, and that's fine.
Well, humility is such a beautiful thing. I heard it said. I think maybe this was Jim Bob who said this. I don't remember. But if you don't, or it could have been a saint, but it was maybe even Claude Needham said it. But it was something like, if you don't learn humility voluntarily, then you'll be humiliated.
Yeah,
Then life will find a way to humiliate you.
yeah,
Yeah. And there were many times, especially being the undoing guy or whatever, that I got really full of myself. Uh, People coming to me for help and this kind of thing. And then I thought, really, I know all this. And in the background, parts of my life were just falling apart, just
yeah,
falling apart. Like my relationships, especially, or life situation, or house I was living in, whatever it was. And I was just faced with this contradiction.
yeah,
Eventually, I just started admitting it to not that I need to. If I'm doing this work, I don't need to tell every client every struggle I'm going through. Okay, no, not on that level, but not to get so full of myself that I think I'm above anybody that's coming to me for help, or
yeah,
above anybody for any reason.
yeah.
There's just no need for it. Uh,
Exactly. And I mean, a lot of people, of course, will, with their pride and stuff, think, he's fake. He hasn't solved each and every one of his own problems. He's not like a saint. But they're not the ones who are ready to really work on themselves, I think. I mean, I experienced that feeling right before coming on this video.
hmm,
Just feeling, I was tired, went to a funeral today, have some stuff to fix. I'm going to get up here and talk about how my life has been helped and how to battle delusion and stress.
right.
But then I thought, so what? I mean, everyone goes through things. It's just these tools help you handle it, basically, or not handle it in a lot better ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
to stop handling stuff that's just imaginary that you don't have
yeah,
to handle, like you mentioned before, not creating more mess in your life
yeah,
that when there's already enough to actually handle.
yeah. If I'm to talk about a current experience that I have, which
Hmm.
is kind of how
Please.
I perceive my communication with God or the universe, or It's that I've sort of and a girl who was a friend of mine used to say this to me: for a person who doesn't like responsibility, you sure have a lot of it.
Hmm.
Because I used to say that. So, but now I have lots of responsibility and I'm fine with that. But it kind of sometimes, and I feel when I think, oh, I'm going to have lots of space in my life, that's when it just jams up with all sorts of stuff. Lots of stuff from like my kids' schools and work and different things, and friends of my mom's die and things happen at my gym. Just lots of like administrative stuff, lots of requests. And one thing is to like try to handle all that, which is sometimes humanly impossible.
Mhm.
And another is to like think, oh my God, if I don't do this or contact that person about that, they're going to think that I'm like irresponsible, etc., which is also fiction, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's just to let it go. And yeah, that's a current experience.
Hmm. Yeah, to do what you, so you mean like to do what you can do, and then that's it. That's what you can do
Yeah,
that day.
yeah. And do what feels right and important, but like not dive into every single responsibility thing that shows up.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, it lines with number two that, like we said, makes you less reactive to other people's opinions, which is a
Yeah,
great thing. I
yeah,
used to live really, really burdened by what other people thought of me or enemies I had, places I lived, and carrying it around with me all the time. And
yeah,
yeah, now it's just not really much of an issue. And if anything, if I think somebody did something toward me and it comes up in my head, I instantly humble myself with whatever I've done to other people and whatever pain
yeah,
I've caused, and then it just goes away. I go, Garrett, you don't have anything to say to this person, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, and then it just dissolves. But yeah, it's so much nicer to live in that this tangible physical reality instead of being subject to all the whims of the imagination. It's just insane to be lost up there. Totally
yeah.
insane.
It is,
I mean,
and
that's what leads people to taking their own lives. It leads people to hurting each other. So much madness to this life in the snow globe. I like to call it the snow globe, or
yeah, yeah.
the world of words. Yeah.
That's a pretty good metaphor for it, actually. Shaking it around, and just lots of stuff flows around there. I've had that experience with because I have a penchant. Like we all have our faults, and mine. I know I can feel grudges, and imagine, like you said, with the so-called enemies that might not even exist. You just think, this person, they're trying to hurt me actively.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with more presence in the body, you're able to not, at least I am able to not do anything about it. And then suddenly I'm humbled by learning that there was really not anything. They weren't trying to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
also on the flip side, though, because of course sometimes there are people who try to do things, and you're able to discern them a bit more, because you're no longer like afraid of all sorts of people's opinions. But those people who do have actual and active negative opinions tend to stand out in a way.
Mhm. Right, and then you have the option to actually go confront that or deal with
Yeah,
that somehow, or alleviate it or ignore it, whatever it is. But now you have an option
yeah,
instead of being overburdened and staying up at night and
yeah,
focusing on these things all the time. That segues nice into number three. Uh, Number three is that undoing activates your internal bullshit detector. I think
yeah,
Lance was the first one I heard say that. For me, that worked. I had, like I said, I had all these books, a lot of spiritual and occult books, and Eastern mysticism and all this stuff. And I had moved them up and down the coast of Oregon and California. As I moved houses, I got rid of a bunch of them at one point, but I had still probably, I don't know, in the multiple hundreds, maybe 1,000 books. I went to live on this mountain in Idlewild, California. And it was like the majority of my possessions were these books at that point. And I was looking at the stack of books one day, and I was doing tons of undoing then. We had just started the business and everything. And I felt sick to my stomach. I felt literal nausea looking at the books and at each title and remembering why I bought them and the thoughts I had about the book and who they made me into if people saw I had the books. And I was like, even if I believed in these things anymore, there's not enough time in my life to do the things these books are saying to do. So it's absurd even on that level. But at that point, I could open up the books and 2 or 3 sentences and I could see that it was just garbage. Just as Gurdjieff would call it, wiseacring. It was like an author who read some other author who read some other author who now was putting out a book of practices or their opinions about something.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't stomach it anymore. And I sold them all off. Probably if I was being honest, I would have burned them, so that no one else was subject to them, But I wanted the money, so I took the greedy route out. But I did get rid of almost all of them at that point.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of ties into another thing I've thought of as well, and that is the undoing is becoming more and more relevant, I think, with time, etc. I mean, it's always been relevant for yourself, like in your own life, but having a bullshit detector in the time we live in and in the times ahead is going to be very useful because you're bombarded with the stuff. Yeah. It's no longer just a stack of books. It's all the time.
Yeah, there's a constant barrage of lies going on at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't even find myself on any side of any political spectrum anymore.
No.
I try to align myself with the truth. A lot of people aren't going to want to hear what that is, but yeah, you're just going to need to pay attention.
Yeah.
Especially with the shit coming through in your own minds.
Yeah.
You want to be able to discern that as well. But now some people have called it the post-truth era that we're living in.
Yeah. That's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, you have deep fakes, you have all kinds of madness coming at you through all kinds of screens, almost all the time, day and night. Yeah. So how will you discern what's important and what's not?
Yeah. And yeah, I've actually thought about writing a book about it. And I picked a title. I'm not going to say the title right now because it's sort of like a little wording I made for myself. But basically, it's about that you're responsible for your own well-being. That's the main thing. And with the bullshit detector now, we're going to see a steady stream. The bullshit is going to become so much more, it's going to become enormous, with AI and everything. And everyone's going to have a chance to publish their own bullshit. And like the paradox of everyone getting a say is that everyone who hasn't worked on themselves a bit also gets to speak their so-called truth.
Yeah.
So
there's a problem with that when people say my truth. I see it on Facebook all the time. My truth. Oh, speak your truth, woman, and all this.
Yeah.
There is no your truth, my truth. Truth cannot be relative.
Yeah.
It has to be absolute. Otherwise, the word has zero meaning. You will run. If you extrapolate from a relative truth position, it goes to nihilism.
Yeah.
They should
switch. They should switch that word with opinion.
Yeah. But it doesn't sound as good. Speak your opinion, woman. My truth. It's like it's such an inversion. Truth must be absolute. That's it.
Yeah.
An interesting little side note there is, if you grant that truth has to be absolute, then the second premise would be that truth is conceptual.
Yeah.
Like meaning you can't cut the table apart and find it in there.
Yeah.
So truth is absolute and truth is conceptual. Then the third premise would be anything that's a concept has to be attached to a mind. Is that correct? Like the concept isn't found out in the world somewhere.
It's a non-physical thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So then truth is absolute. Truth is a concept. All concepts are connected to a mind. Therefore, truth points to the existence of an absolute mind. I just found that fascinating when it hit me. I was like, oh, I like had an awareness of God for a second, you know, when that hit, I was like really. So anyone listening, you know, I heard Jim Bob actually lay it out once, but when it hit, it was like, whoa.
Yeah. You said to me the other day when we spoke that the truth had to be a who and not a what. Yeah. I've pondered that a bit after you said it as well. I like that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Just points for people to consider, you know.
Yeah. And you know,
go ahead, please.
No, it's just me meandering. I mean, I looked at
No, I like your meandering. That's what we're doing here. Yeah.
There are, you know, tons of people who have like used that the thought of it that there needs to be a perfect concept. Like Plato had it with his Platonic ideals. You know, that things have their good ideal somewhere, which is a concept. Because if the perfect something exists, it has to have a concept somewhere in order for there to be imperfect versions of it in the world. And
then if we are created if man is created in the image of,
exactly.
When it hits, it's hitting right now, even in my head, man. When that hits, it's like it transcends logic, you know. But it's logical, but everyone should follow these things through. If you care about truth or care about life at all, it's with morality, you can follow the same kind of follow the basic logic. If you're going to make an ought claim, you ought to do this rather than that, or something's better than something else. Again, we're stuck with if it's relative and it's based on preference, then someone stronger than you theirs is better. Period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Unless it comes from a source, an absolute source of morality.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Fascinating stuff, but not exactly the topic of today. But the undoing will put you back into a place where you can start to examine this. You can start to examine the logical fallacies going on in your imagination that, let's say, the demons or whoever else or your imagination are using against you, but they're all illogical.
Yeah.
One client, I really loved working with this guy. He was kind of healed in 2 sessions. I mean, he bought a certain package from me, and after 2 sessions, he was like, "That's it. I got everything I paid for and more from this one moment right now." And he was having all this trouble laying down to do the breathing and do the movements. And I was like, "What is going on?" He was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm just so filled with anxiety right now." And I was like, "But look around, man. What's actually going on? You're laying on the couch." I said, like, "Is there a tiger in the room or like a poisonous snake?" Like, and he's like, "Well, no." And I said, "But look around, make sure." And he looked around. I said, "Is there someone coming to kill you? Like, what's going on?" And in that moment, it just all hit him. He was like, "Oh, dude, there's actually nothing going on right now. Like, there's just nothing happening. I'm feeling all this stuff, but nothing's actually going on." So he was healed from it. He went out. You know, we still did the next few sessions, but he just wanted to talk and hang out. And explore those ideas. But in that one moment, he just really hit. I'm feeling a bunch of stuff, but there's no threat. Nothing's happening.
And that's, I mean, you're telling about one of the ways undoing helped you battle delusion and stress right there. Because, I mean, life can have actual physical dangers and unpleasant experiences. And for most people, I think even when the quote unquote real danger subsides, the danger still exists in their minds, right? And also the unpleasantness, they experienced something bad, maybe a fight, maybe they had something done to them, and it remains with them, right? But both working to de-stress your body and relaxing the muscles also gets rid of the stress that you had when you experienced that, and also realizing what's actually happening around me right now. Am I still fighting? Am I still getting robbed? No, there's nothing.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful thing. Yeah. We wrote for number 4, you can get real help for what actually matters. And now I'm kind of not remembering exactly what we meant by that.
Well, we talked a bit about, and this was my experience because I did lots of like spirituality and self-help and stuff like that before I started doing the undoing. And as I mentioned, with those journeys, which were just part of what I did, when I kind of came back out of it, it felt like I hadn't changed. And now, though, if I pick up a book like that, I'm able to see what can actually be done.
Now I remember. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So for people who have read like tons of self-help books and they haven't actually done the exercises or they haven't helped, etc., now you might read one and you can actually do something about it and use it.
Right. And you mentioned one time, I think I have it on one of the on the I think I have it on the in-person workshop website or something, sales page, where your testimonial was like, uh now I actually do things. You said like
Yeah,
you were saying it's like this momentous thing, but it sounds like nothing. Like
yeah,
this work has made it so that now I actually do things.
yeah,
It
yeah, and that's
sounds so
quite
funny
different.
to say it, right?
Yeah, because that delusion. I remember talking to a guy that I used to work with, and he said he was seeing how to phrase this in English, but he said he did a lot of fishing. And I asked him, okay, how much? And the answers were vague. And after drilling down into it, we came into the fact that he only fished twice a year. So we rephrased it into he likes to think about fishing. He wasn't doing
Yeah,
lots of fishing.
yeah.
You know, there we also did, I mean, some of the exercises that we've done can feel a bit frightening, though, and very humbling. And
Yeah.
one I remember in particular was playing the tabletop role playing game Bot Life.
Ooh, man, bot life. Wow.
Yeah. And to the audience, if anyone has played D&D, you'll know Dungeons and Dragons. There are lots of tables. You can roll the dice to see if a wandering monster appears or brigands appear, etc. But they're always related to like, are you in a wilderness location or on a battlefield or something? So what we did was like write down all the locations in our lives and what usually happened with them. Like in this location, I'm fighting with my wife. There, I'm like having lunch at work. And we gave them to each other in the group and rolled the dice and played each other. And we saw how mechanical and
Oh man, that's
repetitive our lives were.
we did that during the dailies. That was during year 2, and I remember that we spent quite a long time putting those tables together and kind of figuring out the book.
Yeah. I think I was only part of like a couple of sessions with playing it, but it was just
Ah,
those couple of
okay.
sessions and just putting the tables in place were I mean, that was something in and of itself to just measure up all the stuff I was doing in my life and the places I were, seeing how many of them were repetitive, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah, that bot life thing, man, we could almost do a whole stream on that. That was such a fascinating thing. Yeah, you had to like write down all the locations in your life, and then you had sub locations. So you had location like house, and then
Yeah,
bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, and then you also had activities that are location dependent.
yeah,
So all the activities that could possibly happen in those spaces, and then you had grocery store, you had car, or you had um, so you had your town. Yeah, and it was weird. After shortly after putting all those tables together successfully and playing the game a few times, I moved from one country to another and had my
yeah,
relationship completely fall apart as well. And then it was hard for me to look because I was still wanted to put my tables together
yeah.
in the new location. Actually, I did put the tables together for when I moved to Osijek, and it was like some tragic experience for me looking at the old tables and wishing I had the old tables back. And now I have these new tables,
Oh, the
and it
game
has
has
different,
changed. Yeah,
yeah, completely different robot. Ah, yeah, a bot life group would be a fun thing to do,
yeah,
aside from undoing. But I think undoing makes something like bot life much more possible and much more tolerable, let's say, without it
Tolerable, yeah.
devouring you. Yeah, tolerable. Oof. But one strange side note there was I remember playing around in Tyler's life. Maybe you were there for this time we were playing it. And what it means to play around in Bot Life is you roll a day of the week. So you roll a fictitious 7-sided die, let's say. So you get a day of the week, and then you get a
location.
Time of day.
Yeah.
Yes, you roll day of the week, time of day, and then if it's a time of day that forces a location, so if it's work or if it's whatever, and then you'd roll a location, and then from there you'd roll an activity that's taking place in that location, and then maybe an encounter. I can't remember. I think you just roll the activity, and then you would say, so you'd give a narrative for 15-minute chunk of that person's life, as if it was you just rolled it up, you're that character. And as we were doing it, I remember playing around in Tyler's life and describing the scenes, and I was describing them, and it was like, he's like, yeah, it looks exactly like that. So it was as if you were seeing that person's life from within, and it was accurate.
Yeah, and I think you even mentioned some food and a spoon or something. I think it was pretty accurate, and he was like, "Oh shit, this is exactly how it is." And you had the NPCs there that were the people in his band or whatever, the people he was living with. And yeah, I remember. I was there.
That was a moment for sure for everyone. I think we got a little deep there. Yeah, Bot Life. So DB in the chat mentions, so I guess we just did elaborate. Yeah, maybe I'll talk to Claude. I want to talk to Claude about that because this could be something. I don't know if he ended up publishing the book. We were working with an old version of it, which was extremely heavy on the tables.
Yeah.
Like with some effort, it would still take you a month to really, really complete the tables, and he may have simplified it, but I kind of liked the way that we went about it because we had that dailies group, and whenever we came up with something that was a quandary, because of this the flow of that particular group of people, we could figure things out that one of us couldn't figure out. The panic breath, for one example, that was an exercise where we had the written text for, and then Hyatt had died, and I had never gotten the chance to ask him about that one exercise. And we sat together, I think a few dailies in a row until we figured out what those instructions must be referring to. And we ended up with the panic breath.
Yeah.
And it's super powerful, useful exercise. But we did the same with Bot Life. And we did end up coming up with a way to do it. Extremely beautiful and fun game.
Yeah.
I do have a gaming group here too that I hang out with, but I introduced Dream Life once. This is a bunch of tangents, but I introduced Dream Life to like a normal gaming group one time. Some people started to spin out a little bit, because in my mind it was like this simple, fun thing. You have these tables where you put your locations from your dreams, and then you put activities, things that you happen to be doing in your dreams, on another table. And then you put encounters, like things that, so an example would be from my own dreams. One of them was like abandoned abandoned school in Romania. And then I would I was talking to these people. The activity was talking to people that were in the abandoned schoolhouse. We were like doing this weird bowling game. And then the encounter was like police showing up at the abandoned school. So you just put all your dreams that you remember from dream journals, whatever, into these 3 tables. And then you roll a dice for a location. You roll the dice for an activity, and you roll the dice for an encounter. And then you just make a narrative. And there's 3 steps to the narrative. This is kind of extremely important to be able to discern between what the 3 steps are in everyday life even. And the first step was, what are the ingredients? Okay, so you just say the location is, the activity is, and the encounter is. You don't add anything. And then the second step was you set the stage a little bit. You elaborate. You don't get into the story, but you elaborate. Okay, these people are around. They're playing a bowling game. The building's kind of falling apart. It's what time of day. And then the third part, you actually go into the story.
Yeah.
And just introducing those 3 steps to people who are not expecting it.
Yeah.
That started to get discomfort. They didn't want it. They were like, why do we have to do the first steps? I just want to tell the story. And I was like, no, it's important. It's part of the game. Just do part 1, part 2. And it was like, somehow they just couldn't handle it. I actually stopped the thing at that point. Just stopped playing because they were really, really struggling. And I felt some amount of compassion for them. I was like, okay, I shouldn't really introduce something like this in this context, where we're like playing board games. And
yeah. And most of the time when people play RPGs, people play to like experience something else, to like take them away a bit, which is also fine and fun. I mean, I do a lot myself, play role-playing games with the kids and stuff. But if you're supposed to do it but it always becomes a bit about you anyway, though.
Of course.
If you're playing a really dark game, then where does all this come from? But to do it so obviously about you, that would freak people out.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, I would introduce it with a little bit different, with a little more suave kind of way. And maybe have some appetizers leading up to it, but.
You could do it like hardcore everyday life, like you're trying to pay for your groceries, but your card bounces. You feel shame. What do you do?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Bot Life and Dream Life, those definitely are worth some further exploration, especially tied in with the undoing stuff.
Yeah,
that's kind of explains why. So we have this body movement stuff, we have the breathing, we have the full sessions, we have the stuff you do every day. But then there's all this other content I made over the years that goes along with it, whether it's the creativity, the music, the drawing, the role-playing games, or other types of gaming. I think that's super important, and that's missing in some ways from the earlier renditions of this work. It makes true inquiry into yourself possible and at least tolerable. For one, so then you're able to actually do these kind of exercises and get some fruits from them. But also on just a not freaking out level, if your body is used to having this amount of tension all the time and burning calories to stay tense and upset, and then you stop the body, which is what it does. You stop the body from doing that. You're going to have a lot of extra energy. And not in some new age sense, but meaning the time you used to spend being upset is now open. It's now available to you. So that's why I tried to push people into some kind of creativity, some kind of music or singing, going out for different kinds of walks, different kinds of cognitive experiments, adventures out in the world with other people. Even just the one, if there's people who bother you in your life or you're having arguments with or whatever, try to deliberately mispronounce one single word all the time when you're talking to that person, for an example. And it just takes the wind out of your own attitude of vengeance and stuff, and kind of like disarms the other person too. And they'll try to correct you, or they won't try to correct you, which is equally funny either way.
You notice creating fun.
Creating little.
I haven't done that. That's good. I'm going to try that.
I invented that one, but because I'd seen something about William Shatner, that William Shatner was mispronouncing something on the set of Star Trek, and they kept coming in to correct him, and he because he's Shatner, insisted, no, this is the way it's pronounced. Why? Because I'm pronouncing it that way. That's why. It was just so much hubris, but he could pull it off, somehow. I loved the Shatner stuff, but then I thought, okay, so just deliberately mispronounce something and don't let anyone correct you. Just stay with it. That's it. Simple thing you can do differently with your day. So a lot of the undoing is around that, like these little things you can do to kind of take the wind out of your because a lot of the suffering that people do, a lot of the fake suffering is a result of pride. I'm so much better than everyone else, and then they can't admit it. That particular exercise, I can't admit that I pronounced the word wrong. And the higher you get inflated, the higher you get with with pride, then you will collapse. I heard the Father Cosmas, a guy I really like to listen to on these Orthodox talks out of Australia. He mentioned like just stay low to the ground because you're going to fall. You're going to fall, but if you can stay low to the ground, no big deal. You don't fall so far.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that the opposite of pride, the inferiority complexes, are also a sign of pride. Oh, how could I, like people will come, he said people would come for confession. Oh my God, I failed. I'm such an evil person. It's so bad. He's like, come on. Okay. Yeah, it happened. But really, that's another aspect of pride.
Yeah.
That'll always find a way to inflate you.
Yeah.
Deidre says, you did that to my name for over years. Yes, I will say that was a deliberate exercise for your benefit, Deidre. No, she has this accent over the E, so it's Deidre, but it's Deidre. And I'm now always speaking the R with the R because it's in Croatian that way. And then I'm going from American pronunciation to European pronunciation if I try to practice Croatian. So when I got her name, it just messed me up every time. I was like, Deidre. No. It's Deidre. And then I would say Dra because I'm going into European pronunciation. Deidre. No. Deidre.
Deidre. Yeah.
So it messed with me forever. But now I've said it a few times live on stream. We're going to highlight you. Don't let the pride get to you, But hopefully I've got it correct at this point. She suffered through it the whole time, though, like a champ. So
yeah, excellent.
So we have two more, and then I'll let you go. I know we both. I have an early morning tomorrow too, but let's crank through these two more quick. Yeah. And number 5 of how undoing helps you combat delusion and stress is that it increases. This is an interesting one. Number 5 is that undoing will increase your anxiety and frustration tolerance.
Yeah.
Now, that's fascinating because a lot of people want to avoid anxiety and frustration. But if you want to learn anything, if you want to really get involved in your own life, go deep into your life, then you're going to need to feel things more intensely. And some of those things, I hate the word anxiety. We have psychiatry and psychology abusing it beyond all belief.
Yeah, but just pain, you could say. Some things are going to be painful. Like, for instance, we mentioned that there are real dangers, as in physical dangers, or as in people who actually want or have bad intentions. Those things exist. Yeah. And in order to face that, I mean, a lot of people shy away from confrontation, say, because they're afraid that something will happen, etc., and maybe it even will. And you get a higher tolerance for that, basically, because you don't need all the fake fear first, before, and after, so you can do the actual fear when you're there. Also, low-level stress, and I mean, this is for me at least always a discovery process. Because sometimes the undoing does that I can tolerate a lot more low-level stress. But if it's not right for me at all, then it kind of intensifies even more. If it's a situation where I shouldn't be, it kind of like, oh, you can't be here at all. You have to do something about it.
Yeah, it will make the things you shouldn't be tolerating intolerable. That's an interesting factor. It will amplify the things that are going on that you should not be doing. Your reaction to those, but then it will make the things, like if you wanted to learn guitar, or you wanted to learn painting or something, it will make it so you can make tons and tons of mistakes and not just quit. You can tolerate that level of frustration, like, oh, okay, man, I messed up again.
Yeah. Or just the anxiety of asking your boss for a raise, for instance, or if you're a man and you have like problems approaching women, things like that, whatever it is, then if it's a fake fear, then you will have a higher tolerance for it.
Yeah, higher tolerance for the intensity of the experience. Yeah.
And also humbleness. I mean, I've been doing martial arts for quite a few years, and I did boxing and Muay Thai for many years. But then I was had a 4-year period without martial arts. I think that was during the time when we started the dailies, actually. But then a friend of mine said, you have to try jiu-jitsu. And he pestered me with it until I joined him. And I felt like when I went from boxing to Muay Thai, I carried a lot of the skills with me. But in jiu-jitsu, I just was useless. And it's a non-intuitive system. So you have to learn everything. It's comprised of things you just don't do, In boxing, you understand that you're going to hit people. You just have to learn the technique. But jiu-jitsu, you just don't know what you're going to do. And it's a humbling experience. And I was humbled. And the tolerance thing there played in. It allowed me to remain in a situation where I couldn't win for a long, long, long time, just to learn from the people who were better than me. And eventually, of course, that humility paid off.
Yeah, that can be said of a lot of different situations in life.
Yeah.
That'll translate to a lot of other situations. So increasing the anxiety tolerance and the frustration tolerance. I remember when I first heard my teacher say it would increase, that undoing will increase the anxiety tolerance. I remember I was afraid of that for some reason. Yeah. I thought, like, what? I'm going to have to feel more of this, But it's like, no, you won't. It won't be a big deal anymore. That's what I couldn't understand from the beginning.
Yeah.
And number 6 was you'll feel everything more fully, emotions or the experiences in your life. You'll feel things more fully, but they will dissolve much faster, and you won't react to them. You won't overreact to them.
Yeah.
You'll feel everything more fully, but you will not be forced to react to your feelings.
Yeah. Or you could channel them in creative ways instead of again, not fucking up your life. Mm-hmm. I had a breakup a bit after COVID, and it was I had a real heartache. Basically, I thought at first it would subside, like, this isn't real, this is going to pass in a day or two, but it lasted for quite some time. Mm-hmm. But instead of dissolving into despair or hopelessness, it was actually it was painful, but it was a bit beautiful as well. And I was able to write poetry about it and things like that, and live through it. My life didn't stop because of it. Mm-hmm. It was painful, but I was able to move through it in a way.
Yeah, there's something beautiful about that, about being able to observe what's going on for you.
Yeah.
And to allow yourself to go through that kind of suffering, but not make a problem out of the suffering.
Exactly. Not restricting
it. And this is a problem when people get into the new age stuff or the self-help stuff or the self-development stuff. You kind of mentioned this earlier, is that then they have the bar is set so high in their minds. I'm supposed to be this way. I'm supposed to be that way. Tony Robbins said this way. This guy said that way. Maharaji said this, And they think everyone else is having that experience, getting the results from the books or the practices or whatever. Yeah. And then they feel like even more of a loser because they've tried all these different books and nothing worked for me. And then they can't even feel what's actually going on or acknowledge the suffering they're experiencing in their life, because now they're suffering because they're not living up to some imagined standard they got from somebody else about how they're supposed to handle that suffering or how they're supposed to go through it or whatever. Yeah. Instead of just going through the mess of it and letting that be okay, letting that be enough.
Yeah. Yeah. They're putting an extra layer there, so they have to sort out that layer first.
Yeah, so it's multiple layers removed from what's actually going on. And then from those layers, they're all imaginary. You can't handle anything anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll drive you nuts. It'll just drive you totally insane to live that way. Yeah. And that living in an insane way has become normalized. That's why you have a million made up psychiatric conditions, a million made up, diagnostic manuals.
Yeah.
And just made up. If you look at the origin of the DSM, you can read about it in the book, The Psychopath Test by John something. He interviews the guy who was involved in creating the DSM. And that guy was admitting, man, this has gotten way out of hand. He said when they first made it, they just invited a bunch of psychiatrists and everybody just said what they thought should be in it. And that's how it was created, Yeah. There's no oversight. You know what I mean? Nothing. Not that anyone could have oversight in that fake science, but that's a whole other topic. But the myth of mental illness, I started rereading that again lately, and it's just like the term mental illness is a logical category error because illness refers to a condition of the cells, the physical cells or the tissues in the body, and that doesn't exist in so-called mental illness. So it's a fundamental category error from the outset. And then when you think of treatments and all these other things, it's just madness, utter madness. And they're the ones who are defining what madness is, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy to comprehend it, you know? And that author got so attacked by the whole industry, you know, because he was a psychiatrist who wrote the book, Myth of Mental Illness.
Yeah. What's his name again?
Thomas Szasz, or Szasz.
Thomas Szasz.
Szasc.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's some character named Szasz in the Arkham Asylum. They must have been drawing off him.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Anyway, Hungarian American psychiatrist who was against forced therapy and all this kind of stuff. And, yeah, beautiful person, and a great book. But anyway, that's another giant can of monkeys and barrel of worms.
Yeah, there are so many. Yeah.
But Christian, I'd love to do. The last thing I had written down was about the feel the emotions fully and let them dissolve. That also ends the conflict of the fake seeking, and it makes so you can stop all the practices that you might have gotten into that were convincing you to chase elated emotional states, like you mentioned the Egypt script and things like this. If you end up on one of these treadmills of chasing, if you end up in the deception of chasing elated emotional states and confusing that for what's called spirituality, you're in for a real disaster. It's going to inflate your pride. You're going to be slammed to the ground and wonder what happened when you can't sustain it all the time. And the gurus and the teachers who say you can sustain it all the time, they're either consciously lying or they are self-deluded.
Yeah.
That's 100% the case.
This goes on in people's minds all the time. You know, the TGIF type of thinking, you know, thank God it's Friday. Well, thank God it's Tuesday, you know?
Yeah. Thank God I have another moment to live here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it ends the FOMO thing. There is no missing out because wherever you are, that's what's happening now.
That's the party. Yeah,
exactly. Beautiful way to put it, man. I'm so happy we're doing this.
Me too. Yeah, I'm loving it.
I was remembering when we did some webinars and different stuff and just having a great time hanging out and talking with you. So I'll message you about this, but maybe we can come up with a more regular stream time and idea or something. I would really enjoy that, man.
I'd love to. And there are so many, I mean, we've kind of like touched on topics here we could go into with everything from like orthodoxy to psychiatry to role-playing games.
Yeah.
There's so much cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So let's, I'll message you about this, but let's see, maybe we can come up with a regular time and day or something. We can see about that. That would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And let's see, DB, let's see if we got any comments here. DB says, because we're energetic beings and our connection to truth in life is electrical, not hormonal and emotional. I'd say on some level that's the case. I think you're getting closer there with that. I think that our physical body our physical body and our intellect, our mind, and our soul and spirit, which I guess there's two different words there, but I would say they're all. Our connection to truth and life is electrical, not hormonal. You are correct. Our connection to truth and life, I would say, is not hormonal and emotional. I would say that is true. Keep digging with that one, DB. It's an interesting statement, but I think you're experiencing something true, and it's getting mixed up a little bit with the words. But I would say that's accurate to some degree. We're energetic beings. I would say we are spiritual beings, but not in this New Age sense. And it does include the body. It does include the suffering of the body. It does include the suffering we go through in life. But yeah, the truth is not hormonal or emotional. I would agree with that. And DB says, "You guys are a great duo. More interviews with each other." Thank you for that. I
Thank
would
you.
like to do more of this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And thanks to Deirdre. No, thanks to Deirdre for showing up.
I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I'm new. I'm new here.
And DB, thanks for maybe it's DB. Isn't that the famous hijacker?
Hijacker.
DB, the one who got away with it. Was it the airjacker?
Oh, the guy who's played by is it Leonardo DiCaprio?
DB Cooper. Yeah, DB Cooper.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the infamous DB Cooper. I'll leave everybody with one little side note. There's actually two, but one I'll save for another time. Daniel. Okay, it's Daniel. All right. So this podcast just blew my mind, and it's called I think it's called American Skyjacker or something like this. Let's see. It's like a 10-episode series, and the guy went to such great lengths to make this podcast. American Skyjacker, the final flight of Martin McNally. I think it's on all the podcast sites, on Spotify and stuff. 10 or 11 episodes, but it was like movie quality. I mean, I could see everything in my mind. And everyone who's alive from when this stuff happened was interviewed. Anyone who he could get a hold of was actually interviewed on the podcast. So like stewardesses who were on the plane, the main guy who did this hijacking, like you get to hear it through his words, like people who knew him in prison. Man, it was like a real ride to listen to this story. It has an unlikely ending too. I won't spoil it.
Okay.
Folks, but it's worth checking out. I don't know why or how that relates to everything else here, but that guy, that was his undoing.
Yes.
Yeah. So check that out. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching, folks. Daniel and Deidre, and anybody else who happened to drop in. And if you enjoyed it, please click the like button and comments and share. Do what you can with it. It makes a big difference. I'm going to start building the channel a lot more. So if you guys are watching, please click that like thing. And I put some links down in the description here too, if you want to dive in and check out, experience for yourself some of the work that Christian and I were talking about tonight. I put some links there for the weekly sessions, for the do-it-yourself courses where you can do the radical undoing stuff on your own at home with video courses. And then also, I think I'll do a push soon for a new round of intensives. If you want that, you'll have to get in touch with me and we'll discuss that over a call. There's many ways to get involved, and I probably will be doing something with the dailies like you mentioned, Christian. I think that's a great thing for people to do. It's just a shame you can't do it live with the group, but people who have done it with videos said that they really felt like they were there when they did it on the video.
And a cool thing about that is that you're all in different locations and get to see into each other's lives in a very special way, because it did happen like different times during each day. A bit, sometimes you were a bit late, we started a bit later, some people had dinner in the background, we got to know each other's lives in a special way through the screen, of course.
Yeah, but there was an intimacy and a connection to it, man, and it holds over. It held true in real life, like when I met you, or I met Edwin, or met Nathan, or Lance. When we would meet these other guys, the physicality of the connection comes across when you're doing this work. Even though we're doing it on Zoom, it really does come across, and that's something still a little bit inexplicable, but beautiful. Yeah. Man, well, next time, Christian, I want to ask you about your we could probably talk for 2 hours about some of your experiences at the England workshops, like the Clones Anonymous support group, for example.
That was an experience. We can do that next time. I mean, I told you about my experience with that. I had to leave because my taxi was arriving and we were supposed to do some grounding dance afterwards, right? But I didn't do that. So I just came straight out of it. And that was kind of like, doing mushrooms and suddenly popping out of it and being put on a train to London. It took me several days actually to come back from that. I'm not sure if
That's-
I did.
yeah. You are still a clone. Yeah, don't tell
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, so we have plenty to talk about. I'll message you. We'll figure it out. But thanks a
Yeah.
lot for coming tonight, man. It's so enlivening. I was, yeah, I had a great time. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
me too. Thanks for having me, man. I loved it. So let's do another one soon.
All right, we will talk to you soon. And thanks everybody for watching. See you guys later.